everyone. Welcome to this client testimonial / training where my client Kier and I, who is a fitness coach for petite women, will be talking about how to build monthly recurring revenue so that you know where the fuck your money's coming from. And this is something that used to be really strong on my heart and my mind because there was a point in time where I did not have any and I really fucking needed it. Why? Because I experienced what so many of you guys experience, which was autoimmune illness. And hi, Kier, she's here. Of just trying to get the next sale, doing another group program launch. And it was really freaking dysregulating. And so Kier is actually someone who was the inspiration, for me starting momentum, for me teaching other women how to do this thing called MRR, and all of the really interesting, weird nervous system trauma shit that comes up when you're trying to create something that's stable and you've never really had stability in your life. You know what I mean? I think Kier can probably relate to that. So yeah, there's so much to be talked about in this conversation. And I just want to thank you, Kier, for coming on here because I know I personally get inspired to be more vulnerable whenever you are vulnerable. And I think you're going to help out a lot of people with sharing your story today and also probably inspire a lot of fitness coaches who haven't ever thought of creating a mastermind because it's typically something I see business coaches do. So introduce yourself. Hi.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me. I just want to be honest and say that I hate these lives with passion,
Me
but
too, but we're doing the hard things or
yes, we're doing the hard things. And when you were like, do you want to do this? I was like,
not.
not really. But like, yes, because you've taught me to do the scary shit. And it's actually not so bad. So we are, regulating my nervous system here too.
Yeah, that's something that I want to bring up later on. Like you were healing your nervous system for a while and we were working through that, but then there came a point where it was time to challenge yourself
Mhm.
and
Sure.
to do the uncomfortable business thing so that you could grow beyond just, okay, I'm regulated, but I'm just like coasting.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you tell them how you came into my world to begin with and what made you
Okay.
start?
Yes, this is a story for sure. So I was going through maybe like 2 to 3 years of like having these massive breakdowns about my business. Um, at first they were, like maybe once every 3 to 4 months, and then it started becoming more and more frequent to the point where I was having like multiple breakdowns a month about my business. And I was like, feeling super unaligned about my message. I was not excited about my offers. I was not getting clients as often as I previously had. And so I was just like super discouraged, really down. And so I wasn't showing up online, which meant that I wasn't making money. And it just became this like snowball of a thing where I was so disappointed in myself. Because I was raised to be this strong, independent woman. And here I was, like, super dependent on my boyfriend. And I mean, not to go too far deep into like the childhood trauma stuff, but like, I was almost so scared that he was going to resent me for depending on him and that he would leave and abandon me and then I would have absolutely nothing. And so I was doom scrolling one day after one of these massive breakdowns, and I stumbled across your page. And I had been following you since your bodybuilding days. Like, that's how we connected way back. Um, but yeah, so like I stumbled across your stuff and I was like, oh, what is she up to? But you were posting about this masterclass and about dysregulation. And I was like, ooh, maybe that's my problem. Like, what is this? And so I listened to your masterclass, and it was funny because you had a client at the time who was also named Kier. And I was like, oh, how ironic is this? Because, like, that's not a common name at all. And so listening to you coach her through what she was going through while also like saying her name repetitively, it felt like you were talking directly to me. And I was just like, I have never felt so seen and so connected to someone who I've never even spoken to before. And I just like, it was like all the stars aligned, and I
Yeah.
messaged you and was like, okay, I don't know what the fuck you're selling, but I need it. Like, I'm in such a bad place. It was like rock bottom for me. I was so stuck, and you were like this light that
Um,
came out of nowhere.
So what you just said, when I was in my rock bottom, I was like, I don't know why the fuck I'm going through this. Like everything is awful. This is so dark. Like I don't even know how to get out of this. There's no one I can find on Instagram who has been through this thing. But I know that I must be going through this for some reason. Like ideally one day a woman's gonna like hear me talk about my story and whatever solution I found, and she's gonna be like, thank you so much for being this person that I needed, that I didn't know I needed.
Mhm.
So like that was sort of what got me through the darker periods of that time where I was dealing with autoimmune illness from my breast implants that I got from competing. And then all of my self worth shit was coming up because if I'm not defined by my appearance or my body fat percentage or the trophies that I win on a stage, which you and I also connected over, like the competing stuff, then then business stuff like money. If I'm not defined by that, then what the fuck am I defined by?
Yeah.
That was that was my like awakening moment where I was like, I don't know. So I better figure that the fuck out as I heal whatever health issue is going on. And it's, yeah, something that's so common. Like, even the woman who just joined Momentum, she's going through this mystery autoimmune illness. And it's like every woman that comes to me has such a similar journey. And so I'm
Yeah.
excited to like talk about that with you and hopefully help her and anyone else watching feel like there's hope at the end of this tunnel of healing and business building, because it is not an easy journey, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What
I
was your
know.
well, it wasn't autoimmune, it was period
Yeah,
amenorrhea.
it was hormonal stuff. So like way prior to working with you, I lost my period from competing, and I went through this whole, they call it all in, to fix amenorrhea, right? So like I had to intentionally gain weight. And so I was super vulnerable, and I shared, like I documented the whole journey and I shared it. And I think for me, what happened was like I healed my hormones and stuff before reaching out to you, but I had so much trauma from that experience of showing up and being so vulnerable. Like I got really in my head about, like, maybe I shared too much. Maybe I lost the trust that I had with my audience. Maybe they don't want to work with me because they saw me gain weight.
I
And so
remember
to
that.
me, I was like all up in my head saying, did I just self sabotage my entire business and my entire life because I had to gain weight to fix my hormones and
Yeah,
get healthy? And so like by the time I reached out to you, I had technically already healed my hormones, but I think there was still like that last little gap, right?
yeah.
Like that, like of healing like my mental health from it and like overcoming the trauma that came with that. So,
I remember you posting one day because the first thing you ever joined was Rich and
mhm.
Regulated. This was 2021, way before Momentum
I
existed,
think it's
and
22.
2022.
Yeah.
I remember you posting in that group and saying, like, did I push them away? And I remember distinctly being like, I mean, it could be, or it could just be the fact that like you're not selling
Right,
very frequently.
right, totally. And I think you were right on the money. But I was in my head about it. I was like,
Yeah,
oh no, like I'm scared to be vulnerable because look what
it's
happened.
funny
Well,
because
I
you do it
did.
so well, and it's like you literally sent me a screenshot of someone who reached out to you because you were
I
vulnerable.
know it's so crazy. And I definitely owe that to you and my therapist for helping me be even more vulnerable than I ever have before, and have learned like, oh, this is safe. This is actually really helping me not only get clients and grow my business, but it's helping my clients be successful reach their goals, and also look at me and go, oh yeah, if she's being vulnerable, I can too.
And now, and you probably saw I wrote that thing about you where I was like, I think that's the key to your success is your vulnerable, like the way that you write. I have to share this email. I must like post it to my story or something later. But the way you write, it gets me in the feels, and anyone who reads it, even if they're not on a fitness journey, would read it and be like, "Oh my God, I get that." And then the way that you show up outside of just the vulnerable emails, like you still show up and you share the sexy parts and you share the wins, and like I think that's a big thing you've overcome too, is being worried that like are people gonna think it's all about the booty or just the aesthetics? And it's like, no, they're not dumb, they're not like they're not gonna think that it's necessarily black and white. Like you can show the sexy wins inside of that, and you can also show the real shit that it took to get the sexy wins. And the kind of women that you want to work with and I want to work with, like they understand that both can exist. And maybe sometimes for the first time ever, they're realizing both can be possible. Like you can be self-aware, you can, be humble, you can be vulnerable, and you can also make a lot of money, and you can also be really successful. And those are things that I believe and want to share with my audience and also with momentum women too. Like I think, and maybe you can describe this for people who are considering joining, like the balance of what we work on in our group calls. Like, what's that like?
Oh man, it's a little bit of everything, I feel like. From like actual business strategy of like what to post and what to say and like how to message people to like, mama trauma. Like we talk about
A lot.
stuff that's almost, in a way, it feels like it's unrelated to business, but it always comes back to business because it always comes back to like how your mental well-being is and like how you show up in the world.
Yeah.
So if we don't talk about that deeper shit, it's just kind of locked in a box inside, and that doesn't help us move forward in
Yeah.
business.
So it's interesting because today, the woman who just joined Momentum, we were chatting about like one of her fears in joining a mastermind type container. And that's not, I wouldn't consider it Momentum a mastermind. Was that it would be so emotional because she had kind of burned out from being in group experiences where like people were just coming to the same call with the same emotional problem for like fucking 6 months in a row. And I was like, that sounds fucking familiar because that's what I first attracted when I was like selling Rich and Regulated, is all these people who are really attached to like their wounds and their problems and wanting to talk about it all the time. And there's a time and place for that. And like we definitely can make space for that. But I'm never going to let someone like wallow and spiral in victimhood because I'm going to name it and be like, let's not do that because we already talked about it the last two calls and I just don't have time for that.
Yeah, no, you're really good at like moving the conversation along and not turning it into this huge like pity party. Like you do a really, really good job of that and keeping the conversation moving and bringing it back to business.
Yeah.
And like those action steps that we all need to take to move forward. So I appreciate that about you.
What have you learned from watching me coach a group of people?
Oh my God, a million and 10 things. um, wow. I really love the way that you structure your calls and how you always drop some questions for us beforehand, whether it's like in an email before or in the group chat, like on the actual call, saying like, here's what I want you to think about for this call. And then we're going to go around the room and everyone's going to get a chance to talk about what they're going through or what they need help with or whatever it is. And I love that structure. And that's actually what I use in my momentum group because it really allows each person to get the chance to talk, even if they're afraid to, even if they're like, oh, I just want to, be a silent observer over here and not participate. I think it's like just so amazing, that structure. Um, but also letting us in the group like help each other too. And it's not just you being the leader and saying this is the way it should be, it's my way or the highway. Like you kind of open it up to other people to be like, what was your experience, how did you do it?
Yeah.
Like tell so and so what you did and maybe that'll help her. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just really appreciate your approach and how you're like, don't you don't have to do everything I say, but be open to it. And
I know
that's
who I'm
just
working
yeah.
with, some stubborn ass bitches that are like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. And I'm like, okay, okay. Because I'm that way. Like
Mhm.
someone tells me what to do once and I'm like, no, oh, wait, you might be right.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that's why I like working with women like you so much is I see myself through you all and I know how to coach you that much more because you are a version of me in a way.
Mhm.
That's all really
Mhm.
coaching really is. It's like such a weird, like limitless, what's Inception experience coaching you guys sometimes. I'm like, I should take my own advice on that. Just gave her. And if you have never had that experience, I don't think you're coaching right because I feel coaching is just one big cycle of that, and our clients teach us so much as well. And that's why I'm really glad to bring us back on track. That you created your first group program, and one of the things that I remember you saying is like, I cannot do a group program, Christy. That is just too dysregulating. Maybe in the future, and you know,
Yeah.
for you in that moment, it was. And then as time passed by and you became more regulated, you went to therapy. That was one of the first things I had you do was like, go find a therapist, please. And that's one of the ways that I prevent people from coming and trauma dumping on my business coaching calls. Is I'm like, you need to have some outlet for that that's not your boyfriend or your husband or me or this group because none of the other women here deserve that. They're all like finding that source for themselves. So I'm like a therapist matchmaker. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
was so nervous. Like I had been thinking about having a therapist and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm open to the idea. I totally want one. But like I never had someone push me the way you did and said, go do it. Like this is your homework assignment. I was like, okay, I could do that.
you've been
Like,
with the same therapist ever
yeah,
since?
yeah. I got lucky. I got really lucky to find a good one the first try. Like we
Yeah.
hit it off immediately. So yeah, good timing, I guess. But yeah, so with the group program, like it was like maybe 6 or 7 months after joining Rich and Regulated, healing my nervous system. And you were like, what about a group program? I was like, no, hell no. Like, I just got regulated, or I'm still working on it. Like, I'm not. Nope, that just makes my skin crawl. Like, I'm not doing that. And I mean, I'm glad that you didn't push it, but you did come back around a couple times. You're like, what about that group program? And I was so, I think the biggest reason I was like, no, I don't want to do a group program is because personalization is like one of my main core values. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nutrition and fitness, like everybody's physical needs are so unique and different. Like, how do I do a group program for that? I just don't get it. And I think somewhere along the line, you were like, well, what about like the mental challenges that your clients go through? Like, aren't those kind of similar and repetitive across someone's fitness journey? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And so, like, that's what really got the ball rolling. It was like, okay, so I can make a group program that's not necessarily like, do this workout and here are your macros. It's more like, okay, but these are the problems that we're all dealing with mentally. And this is, the group
Yeah.
program is to really support you on that. And so I still was like, I don't really want to launch because I wasn't feeling ready for that yet. And you were like, well, what if you sell to the clients you've already worked with, like the women that you already know and love and enjoy working with? And so I think it was like on Best Friendly Jen, the call that you were like, okay, just message like 5 people. And you made me message them right there, which was great because I don't know if I would have actually followed through and taken that action step if you weren't like, okay, right now and show me proof,
Yeah.
which,
I was like sat back and I'm like, I'll wait.
yeah.
I mean, literally.
Which again, I love that about you and your approach. Is like you're actually like, okay, no, you're walking away from this call with having already taken the action step that you need to.
Because I know
And yeah,
how people's brains work. Like if you get off that call and you haven't done it, it's gonna go like this, and it's never gonna fucking happen because you're gonna overthink it.
and that's exactly what would have happened if you didn't make me do it. So I messaged like 5 of these women who I was like, yeah, I would love to continue working with them, and they were all like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. And so I started my Momentum Mastermind group in January of this year. And I am just like blown away by not only like my personal growth, because those first 2 calls, I was like so nervous for. I just remember like shaking like
Yeah.
the whole time because I was so nervous. But now like those calls are so fun. And I've told you this before, but they're like all the women who are in there are women who I would totally go on vacation with. Like we've even talked about potentially doing like a fun-sized weekend retreat at some point because I'm just so proud of the community that I built in there. And like they're all like we're 11 calls in now. So we have our 12th call in a couple weeks. Like it's been a year of them being together and they're all pretty good friends at this point, and that like makes me so happy. It's so nice. But I'm adding more people to that group all the time. Like I have 2 new people starting this month, and it's like a dream come true because it's not only like that I'm, obviously making money consistently, but it's like I now have this offer to give to the clients that I absolutely enjoy working with in my one-on-one. So like once they're finished and they graduate from my VIP program, they naturally just transition into this ongoing accountability and support program. And it's just seamless. Like I love it.
Yeah. It gives you a feeling of safety too, because you
Yeah.
don't worry like, am I gonna sign on this crazy person that I like will hate working with, or that will mess up the vibe of the group? And I think that was probably one of your biggest fears. It's like, well, what if I work with someone that's kind of a fucking nightmare? We've all, if you've been in this business world for more than 2 seconds, you've had a nightmare
At
client that is
least
trying
at
to,
least one.
and you're
But
like,
yeah,
fuck no, I cannot.
I was like, no, I'm not doing a group program because I don't want to launch. And then what happens when like I'm selling to these new people and like they don't mesh on the call and like I don't know. There was all these fears around that, and your solution to be like, why not just work with the people you've already worked with? Was like, duh.
Duh. Easy fucking money. This is something that I do with every person who like does, even just if it's just a one-on-one intensive. I'm like, let's find your easy money. Let's find the people who already love you, because the easiest person to sell to is the person you've already sold to, you've already worked with, they already love you. But I think most people, they don't ask themselves, what do they need next? Like if you can find a what do they need next and what would that look like in a longer term setting, you can create recurring revenue. But you
Mhm.
have to really get clear on what is the problem or like the need that's going to get solved by this longer term recurring income program, besides you just wanting recurring income, because
Right.
that is not a reason
Yeah.
that people want to join your fucking mastermind for a year or your membership. That's actually a funny story. The first time I ever tried to create recurring income because I was so burnt the fuck out, that was like it was, I mean, yeah, like I could say that I solved the problem, but like deep down it was what I wanted. And when you create anything from that place, you don't have motivation, you overthink the fuck out of it, you're all up in your head, and like sure, they might create some results, but it truly wouldn't be the same as if you started with like, this is the need that I see among the people that I've worked with. This is the use case for it. Now let me create a program around that that's longer term.
Mhm.
Um,
You know
it
what?
just
Now that you bring that up, I don't think I realized this before, but I think prior to working with you, when I would create a program, it was like, okay, how can I make money?
yeah,
But now I create programs based around the problem that I'm trying to solve for my clients,
yeah,
which is to- like a
it's
total 180,
different.
right? Like it's like totally different. and like the success that my clients are getting because of that. And then like I started this is a great story. I got this one client like 2 years ago, and so she told her friend about me, and then this friend told like six friends about me. So at this point, like I have like this friend group that they're all working with me, and they're all like in one town, and it's like it's so funny to me. But like that's what happens when you really genuinely care about your clients and not about necessarily the money, right? You solve that client's problem, they're going to rave about you for years, and they're going to rave about you to everyone.
It's so
So,
true. And then also on the other side, like you need the structure to send these people through. So I think like you have your business structure is great because there's like a clear pathway for people to move through up to that mastermind potentially. So can you walk people through like what it looks like when someone first like dabbles in your world and
yeah.
tries you out? How do they
Yeah,
do?
totally. I have a pretty basic workout subscription, and that's kind of like the entry offer. It's low ticket, not a huge commitment. They could cancel anytime. And so from there, once they're like, oh, like I love these workouts, I love this app, like what's next? Then they can move on to, um, well, I guess like they could also do the standalone course that I have. That's like kind of an in between option, and then from there it's the one-on-one VIP coaching, and then after that it goes into the mastermind.
Yeah. And I like your one on one because you teach people the tools they need to be successful and to do it on their own. But you, this is something that we talked about that I want you to do more of, like the emotional aspect of where do these eating habits come from? Like, what are you feeling when you binge and where's the root cause of that? Like, it's such a superpower for you to do that with your clients. And we were talking about this, like the self aware women who are already going to therapy, they already understand there's a connection. They're going to, if they were to see you talking about that even more, or if there were even some prompts on your app where people started to think about that, like you would already stand out from 99% of the fitness coaches. And I
Mm-hmm.
do think that people know, like deep down, unconsciously, probably, like you go there because you are vulnerable about these sorts of things.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say most of my one-on-one calls with my clients in that VIP program is more in that deeper shit kind
yeah,
of um, topics. Because, I mean, for the most part, like they have the strategy down. We'll talk about little things here and there. Like I just got off a call about like how to go about like eating on Thanksgiving. And so I gave her like, here's like the framework, here's like the strategy I would use. But like the rest of that call, we were talking about um, like mindset around, I don't know,
family stuff.
family stuff, but like she's a perfectionist, and so she um would go and normally go into holidays being like, oh no, I have to like track everything and make sure everything's like perfect, and like, oh no, what if I binge? And I'm like, well, how about we just not track and we take a step back and we are mindful and like actually give ourselves that whole like half a day kind of off, relax, enjoy it with your family. One day is not going to derail all your progress. And so, like, talking her down from trying to make sure everything's perfect to like, it's okay, you've got this, it's not a big deal.
Sounds so.
And so, yeah, yeah. So, like, it's yes, we talked a little bit strategy, but also like reassuring her that one day is not gonna
Yeah.
derail all your progress. Um, but yeah, like, and to not feel like she's letting me down by having a glass of wine on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Because that was
I feel
another
like you've
issue that she was like, I'm
become
not
a
sure.
fitness therapist in a way.
In a way, you know what, I once referred to myself that way, and I will never forget this. I had someone be like, I can't believe you would ever say that because that's like discrediting actual therapists who have gone through schooling and stuff. And
Who
I'm
said
like,
that?
so I'm like, this was like years ago during, so
I mean,
the shit that I was
yeah,
going through. So like, yeah.
like, but you know, from my calls, like the shit that I say is so much more than you can get in therapy. And I own that unapologetically because you will not find a therapist who understands the mind fuck that is the online coaching industry,
Mm-hmm.
that understands how your childhood trauma connects to that thing you just did with your launch or your client or whatever the fuck. So it's like you get two things. You get healing your childhood trauma, and then you also get the benefit of moving forward in your business a lot faster than you would if you just went to therapy with a normal therapist, which I still recommend, but also it's going to help you make more money and work with me.
Yeah. Now, there's something to be said about having multiple support, like all over the place, that collaborative care and like having a good support system. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think that having a therapist and having you, like, you guys cover different grounds.
What do you
So,
think? So you've worked with her and me.
this whole time.
Yeah, long term. And I think it's something that you've never experienced someone being in your world long term, like years. You wouldn't necessarily get the impact that it has. So how would you describe it to someone who has never committed because they've got commitment issues to a year of anything?
Oh wow, I could relate to that so much because I was definitely the no, I'm not gonna reach out for help. I've got this. I can do it. Like it's that independent lone wolf like ingrained in you. And if you ask for help, then you're weak or something. Like I always thought like, oh, I have to like push through the anxiety or the challenges. I have to be tough. Like I don't know. But with you and with my therapist, like I've just seen the benefits to keep going, especially during the times when things are going well. There have been several times where I've gotten on calls with my therapist and I have been like, hey, you know what? I feel like everything's pretty good. I'm feeling like all right. And then we dive into something and touch on something. And then it was like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had that problem. Like, thank you for making me see things more clearly. And like,
Yeah.
and so with you as well, like when I think that everything's like pretty good and moving along, you call me out on my shit and like, well, you could be doing this better, or how about think about this and like where is this in your content? And so it's just so amazing to have that support. Like yes, when you need it, when you know you're really down and like mentally just like "Ugh, I can't get through this hard patch whatever," but like especially when things are going well, you just like
Well, I'm not saying like, hey, that problem fucking sucks. You should fix it. I would say, hopefully, I'm more like, we can, things can be good, but also
things could be better.
this woman, they could be even better. And like, I think a lot of people, when you first started the coaching industry and you know nothing and you're Jon Snow, you're like, oh my God, like there are problems everywhere. Fuck. But when things are good, like then you start to have to change your perspective on there's all this potential here. The fires are put out. I could be creating even more income here. I could be challenging myself here, even though literally your entire existence as an entrepreneur is a big ass challenge that never stops being
Right.
challenging. You learn to like welcome it,
Yeah.
embrace the thrill of it. Like we like the challenge, we like the pain, pushing past limits. You and I come from the fitness world, so clearly we like it to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if this goes to say anything, but like there have been times over this last year in your Momentum program where I've been like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. I don't know if I'll resign with her next year. And then we get on a call, a group call, we do something, and it's just like, oh yeah, like this is why I show up to these meetings and this is why I'm here, is because she sees things in my business that I don't. She fills the gaps. And so it's like a reminder of, yeah, even though things are going well, it doesn't mean that I don't need support anymore. Like, if anything, it means that I should keep getting support because things are going well.
Yeah,
Like, if I stop getting support from her, is my business just gonna go tank again the next time I have a little bit of a breakdown? Like,
I
I
mean, I
don't
don't think
know.
it would
I
tank, but
don't think so.
definitely it would like
But you know what I'm saying?
linger and plateau in wherever you are.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. And I've learned too, like, how can I structure a year-long program so that people continuously have that mindset and realization that you just had? Because I'm sure you'll have it again. But like running a year-long program, when someone is committing to you for a year, like there's so much shit that comes up for me that
Mm-hmm.
I have to get better at, that I work on all the time. Because if I didn't improve myself, if I didn't invest in myself and like learn strategies that are working now, because it's very different than what worked in 20 whatever, like any point past this year, like it changes
Yeah.
all the time. And so I have learned I have to be on top of my game and like where I'm learning and investing and what I pass on to you guys and how I pass it on to you. Because if I were stagnant in my growth as a person and as a business owner and a strategist, like I would have nothing to offer you, and I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't continue with me next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something a lot of people who get stuck in the like, oh, I don't need support, I'm good, or I don't need to invest in courses I already did. Like, okay, maybe you did, but like, there's a reason why clients phase out and are not really interested because you don't have anything new to teach them. And so, like, one of the areas I plan on pushing you in around more is like thinking about where you can bring even more to your mastermind, to your clients, and perhaps creating some like trainings or workshops for them, even if it's just like a little bit more structured around the mindset aspect of it. Like if someone were to come into your world, like where could you point them to? And that's part of scaling too, right? Because like it's good to have calls once a month, but also, as I think you know, having like a training to look at first and then coming to a call, like you're able to ask questions that are so much more nuanced and enable you to go take action faster than me having to explain the same thing on every call, which is what I don't want for you as your group matures, because it will. So the more that you evolve, the more that you help them evolve. And wherever that direction is, I have no idea. It will just depend on how you grow as an individual. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah, and I think you made me just realize, like, before working with you, prior to working with you, when I was stuck, like, I wasn't getting help. I wasn't getting business coaching. Like, I wasn't working on myself professionally. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense as to why I wasn't getting clients as often. Like, my strategies and my skills that I had developed up until that point were, plateauing, and I
Yeah.
wasn't moving forward. And so that's why my clients weren't coming forward. So that's interesting.
Ah, and like it's so crazy because I notice every time that I work on my growth and I pass it on to you, I see you all move faster, and it reminds me of why I cannot let my foot off the gas
Same. Yeah.
and why it is so powerful to have a year-long program with someone who that you know because you can see it is maturing and who is growing and who is teaching you new things. Um, so yeah, this running momentum for you guys has challenged me in the best of ways because I can't get complacent. And I think that's probably one of the things that scares people about running a year-long program. They're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, what if people don't resign? Like, they definitely won't. It's evolving. And so it will bring up all of your bullshit. Like the part of you that doesn't want to change, that wants to stay exactly the same, that likes to coach. It can't come with you when you're leading a group of people who are watching and learning from how you lead yourself. And so probably don't start one if you're not willing to do that.
Right? If you're not willing to like actually grow and work on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Or start a business in general, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were going to talk about your group program and your mastermind, and we are. I'd love to know, like, did you ever imagine you would have a mastermind or like a recurring income structure like you do
Hell
now?
no. No, hell no. Like
What
I
was
thought
your
I thought my
original?
app subscription was like the most passive recurring income I could ever get.
Okay,
Like
but
that
what's
was
easier, your app or your mastermind?
ooh. I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that question because they're easier for different reasons, right? Like they're different programs. Um,
Well, let's say like in terms of the work that you put in, the amount,
um
like the hours.
okay, so probably the mastermind.
right? Because you're like filming all these things and doing updates for your app.
Yeah.
When it's your mastermind, it's
You
like
just
you show up
hop
on
on the
call once
call
a month.
with a couple of questions, get the
You're
conversation
hanging out
started.
with your best friends and
Yeah,
you're
pretty
getting paid.
much.
It's like
Yeah.
one of your most, I don't know, but I imagine it's your highest like income source right now of
Yeah.
all of the different offers.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we just shout that for the people in the back? You
One
don't
more
want to
time for the
burn
people in the
out.
back.
Okay, start your fucking mastermind because people think that like it's gonna burn them out to do this thing, and in reality,
Oh, it lights me up.
it,
I get off those calls and I am just like the difference between like before I start and then like once I finish, I'm just so lit
you're
up
like, I
and
can't
it's
believe
just
I get paid for this. It feels like therapy.
yeah, it's so cool.
What would your advice be to somebody that is nervous to start doing group programs because of all the shit that you were worried about, the commitment aspect, the maybe the fear of burning out, or I don't know. Were you afraid of getting triggered and like the anxiety that it could cause you?
Yes, because in my head I was worried about launching and finding new clients to put in this group program. But um, with the clients that I already had and after like reaching out to them, I wasn't as worried about being triggered
Yeah,
with them. Um, but I would say definitely work if you're new to group programs and you haven't had a group mastermind before, definitely start with the people that you know.
yeah.
Like invite the people that you love to work with into a small container. It doesn't have to be very big. I think I started with like 5 or 6 women on that first call. Um, so it was great because it was intimate and we all got to like learn each other in that setting. So it doesn't have to be huge and start with people you know. That would be the advice I give.
That's why I say it doesn't necessarily require launching. It's one of the points I wrote out for this live stream, is because all you're doing is sending a genuine invitation to someone that you know needs this thing and
Hmm.
probably want this thing, and offering it to them. And all of a sudden, there you have all of this recurring income. I make it sound like I'm selling like snake oil or something, but like literally how easy it is. And people, because they complicate it, think it's some huge thing, and it's you really do get to be paid for talking to people who would be your best vacation friends online. Like mind blowing. What a privilege that we get to do
Yeah,
this for a living.
for sure. Hmm.
And it gets to go up from here, especially now that you've done like the emotional inner work and the self-healing aspect of it too.
Oh my God, that has been so life changing, not just like for me, but like for my clients too. Because now I can show up on these calls, both like my one-on-one calls and my group call, my mastermind call, and like see those people pleasing, perfectionism, self-sabotaging habits that I've seen in myself. And so now I can not call them out on it, but like
Point it out.
lovingly call them out on
Now,
it and point it out and bring it to their awareness and like find ways to work through it. Whereas like
yeah,
previously I've been like, that sounds like a problem. I don't know what to do with it. Like,
yeah.
let's talk fitness. Like,
Oh my god.
but yeah, it's the growth in myself that I have seen since working with you. It's crazy. Like, I can't. I, I mean, I told you this the other day. Like, I had a call with my therapist on Monday, and like, even she was just like, I just can't believe how far you've come. Like, and I think about that message that I sent you that you shared recently on your stories. Like, I
Awesome.
don't even remember sending that. Like, I remember being in that state and like messaging you, but I don't remember like how well I was able to articulate what I was feeling to you. Cause like during that time, I was just a mess, like emotions all over the place. I, I, I just am amazed that I was able to just tell you exactly what I was feeling. But also I'm amazed to like look at that message and be like, that was a whole different version of Kier. That was someone else that like I barely recognize now. And it's just
Years
so cool
ago.
to see the difference.
Yeah. I would say like what at least one of those years was working on the deeper like self healing and the people pleasing and codependency stuff. I was actually just talking to Ashley, who just joined Momentum, about codependency because she was like, I don't know if I really want to do coaching because I just take on this like feeling of I'm responsible for people's results and it's so overwhelming. And I was like, girl, you are in the right fucking place because we're going to talk about
Yeah.
it. Because it's like that's one of the biggest things I think you spend a lot of time working through. And you know where it comes from, your parents, like being the rescuer, the victim, and all this stuff that I think every coach has that they either deal with or don't. And you're able to now transfer what you've learned to how your clients are experiencing different struggles with their fitness journey, and maybe they're people pleasing on Thanksgiving and they're like stuffing their faces with mashed potatoes to
Yeah.
avoid feelings about their toxic mother.
Or binge eating at night because they're stressed about planning a wedding, but really it's like all about your mother-in-law who is overstepping your boundaries. So if we can we can like establish boundaries, then we're gonna fix the emotional eating problem.
Yeah,
Who would have thought?
fitness therapist. That's what I'm saying. Like that is such. I'm gonna challenge you to talk about that because like it's the best diet hack that anyone could ever give a client of yours. It's like
Yeah.
set the fucking boundary.
Yep.
Watch your physique just lose the pounds overnight.
Because you're not worried anymore. It's just gonna
Yeah,
fly off. Yeah. It's amazing.
it is. Um, okay, what else is I gonna talk about? Foundations. One of the things you do so well with just your business overall is you create connections. And even though you say you're a lone wolf, like the way that you connect with your community is because you've also told me like a lot of your following is like weird old men, which I'm sure a lot of them
I
have
weeded them out. It's like 25% now.
I mean, there are definitely a few guys from India that joined this live stream. I've deleted them from my following.
Following. Yeah. Because, it just wastes space and then it hurts your engagement. So yeah, clean
Yes,
them out. Clean
exactly.
them out. Get
So
rid of them.
for people who look at her following and they're like, oh, well, she's got a big following. Like, okay, a lot of them are not her ideal client.
No.
And so with the small pool that like is highly engaged, your vulnerability and ability to feel safe connecting with them is I think what fuels so many of people, the leads who reach out to you. And it's that connection that I think you have to be able to do that with your audience and not just share the surface level bullshit. Like no faceless reels, like no inspirational surface level quotes, because that shit is not going to build the trust, even if you have a tiny audience. And so that's like number one. Even if you didn't have a big following, if you wanted to create a mastermind or group program, you've got to create relationships with people and truly see them and help them beyond just seeing them as a sale or an audience member, because they're not. Like I look at you and I'm like, I fucking love you and I'm so proud of you and I'm honored to like help you through this journey. And you and I have had so many conversations about all kinds of shit, life conversations, and it's what makes business feel worthwhile and more than just I'm posting shit online to make money.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like I feel so connected to you.
Yeah.
And like
Oh yeah,
literally.
talk about you fucking helped me create momentum to begin with. Yeah. Okay. So
It's funny because we both named our group programs Momentum. Like you inspired me to name it that because we were talking about the group program and like how it's gonna work and what it's for and this, that, the other. And you used the word momentum. I'm like, I love that. So I used it. And then like a week later you were like,
I was like, that's
do you mind if I use that name too? I was like, why not? It's two different things. We
yeah.
have two
So we
different
both have group
audiences.
programs named Momentum.
Yeah.
Um, but what the reason I created Momentum was, yes, one, I was like, I have all of these fucking amazing programs, and who's consuming them? Nobody. Um, And also, I have all of these
I'm
people.
sure people were consuming
I
them.
mean, maybe they were, but like not to the degree that I knew that they could be. And also a pattern of mine that I had been working through a lot in the past is like I was always creating new shit, and I wasn't like honoring the value of the work I had already done. And so like the whole paradigm of working harder to make more money like was kind of running the show. And so I thought to myself, well, what a great way to um, overcome that pattern than allowing the work I've already done to make me money. But I recognized I was going to have to do it differently because I had tried to create memberships and like different versions of what I do now with Momentum before, but it was always very like passive. And I realized this actually, I have to be very active if I'm going to lead this, and I have to really consider what do people actually need, because like you were buying these one-off programs from me, and maybe other people do that with me or other coaches, but it's very like piecemeal. And then what happens in between these programs, it's like you're like, I don't know how to apply this, or I got distracted by my to-do list or whatever the fuck. And they didn't have the support they needed in between, and so they were trying to like puzzle piece their business journey together, and they were guessing about what they needed next. And it's like, do you really need to buy a course on viral reels when you don't even talk to your audience and the people that you already have in your world? Probably not. But if you don't have somebody to point that out to you, you're just going to go buy the viral reels course and then wonder why you're not making money, when you could just have someone who actually knows your business better than yourself to be like, sit the fuck down, do not buy the viral reels course, actually go sell to the people that you have.
This is
Let's
what you need to go do first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we just had a conversation at one point where I think I just asked you, like, what do you want from me? What do you want from me?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I want your support and your strategies, but I need time to apply the things that I learned before you roll out a new program. I think that's exactly what I told you. I was like,
Yeah,
I want to learn from you, but then I need time to go do it. And then
yeah,
what I was finding was that like if I did that and tried to do it on my own, I wasn't actually moving through because I would get stuck on something and be like, yeah, freeze mode. I'm gonna go over here and do something else. Like, and so with the momentum, like it's these constant group calls and even like the group chat that we have on Telegram. Like if I come to a point where I'm like, oh shit, I'm stuck. Like I did XYZ or XY and now I'm stuck on Z. What do I do? Like I
yeah,
have you to ask questions and get the support I need to keep going in between whatever strategies and programs you roll out next. So that's been super helpful.
yeah. And that was my entire intent, and why I was like, I really need to name this Momentum, because it's in those moments that momentum is built. Like you're not getting sucked back into your patterns or your distractions. You're continuing on. Um, yeah, and then as I see all of you guys moving forward, first of all, one of the things that I think has made you so successful with Momentum is you show up to every fucking
I
call,
missed
pretty much.
one. The perfectionist in me comes out and goes, shit, I missed one.
And I think people underestimate how important it is, even if you don't show up to the call, to just figure out like what is the thing that I need or I want some insight on. Just send me the question. I'll talk about it on the call, or show up and ask something on Telegram. Like, I'm doing this. How could I do it even better? And you're really good about that. And I think people who haven't seen an ROI on their previous investments need to take a page out of your book, because it's like, if you were just to show up and do the bare minimum, but just exist on the call, you would get an ROI, like,
I mean, the fitness parallels, right? Is like the hardest part is showing up. Once you're there, you're doing it. Even if
yeah,
it's not
the shittiest part.
100%, you're doing something, which is better than not showing up and doing nothing. So,
And it changes your self perception of like who you see yourself as a person. I know when I go to the gym regularly, I'm like, I am a fit person, and I'm much more likely to show up. And it's the same with business. Even
mhm,
if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, if you just show up and you're like, I'm learning the things. This is
right.
I'm gonna just commit to action, one little thing from this call, and then I'm going to show up next month or next week on Telegram and I'm going to do it again. I don't know, maybe momentum would be built. Maybe you'd maintain it for more than a year.
I think so. I
Yeah.
know so.
So, so yeah, next year I think we're going to do some stuff. I want to do a codependency and coaching program for sure because I see a lot of people struggle with that. And I don't know, adding in some leadership stuff. I know you wanted that from me, right? Like stuff about how to lead group
I
programs.
want like it all from you. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, what else do you want from me? Let's do it live. Let's.
Did you ever do the like feminism and masculism?
I haven't, but I did just do like a funny.
I remember that being a topic that you
Yeah,
brought up last year that I was like, ooh, that's intriguing.
yeah,
Um,
definitely could. I could like this. So this year, the way that I decided which programs I was going to focus on was I looked at you guys. I'm like, what are the foundations that they really need to work on right now? And if I'm like measuring messaging that attracts the right type of client versus like you being a second mommy to your husband or your partner, like we can wait on. I mean, we can wait on the husband.
yes,
We need to work
makes sense.
on
Yeah.
content because even just like showing up twice a week with a very intentional post is going to get you a lot more financial ROI. And then let's like work on the outliers that are still important, but also in the beginning, like there are foundations that you cannot skip, like content. It blows my mind when people are like, I don't want to spend all that time on content. I'm like, do you fucking know how long it takes me to create some of these pieces of content? So long. But they've made me so much money and they build an ROI over time because people go back and look for your content and they're like, I love her. I binged all of her shit.
Mm-hmm.
That would have happened if I hadn't like forced myself through the tough weeks of like bettering myself because I was very complacent with my content.
Mm-hmm.
I would say years past leading up to this year was that's really when I started on it being like, all right, Christy, you kind of suck at it these days. Like, we need to get this shit in gear so that people know how great you are and
Yeah.
you're able to verbalize why you're the person to work with because yes, it is a saturated industry. Everyone does do what you do, but nobody can be you. That's my favorite part about coaching you guys is I love to find like unique, quirky aspects of yourself that you're not showing that would make people fall in love with you.
Mm-hmm.
You have many of those.
I am definitely guilty of binging all your content.
See?
But I love your content. Like you just said, like the quirky goofiness. Like I loved your skits, and I know those were a lot of work. I know, I bet they were a lot of work, but they were great. Like they just like again, you just saw inside my soul and called me out lovingly on my bullshit. And
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, she sees me. She knows what I'm going through. I need to work with her. And yeah, you do a good job on your content, and that is something that I need to get better at and still need to do
Well,
your
the reason
your
why I stopped
program on
doing them
that.
is because I realized I was unconsciously making these skits that were validating people's struggles, which
Mm.
is, that can make you money. Like, yes, I see you, I know what you're going
Well, that
through, but at the same time,
that reels them in, right? It hooks you, and then they can binge the rest of your content. So maybe just
well,
like a sprinkle,
yeah,
one
I mean,
here and there.
definitely, I'm more open to doing them now. It's like now that I have so much more awareness of who my ideal client is and like what they need to be called out on, I'm going to be calling out a much higher level of problem. Like, for example, us having this conversation and like how you were like, oh, no, I'm good. Like, everything's fine. Like, that's something I could do a skit about that would call in the person I want who already understands because they've experienced the value of long-term investment versus me creating a skit where it's like calling out someone who has never invested in something long term and knows that they're avoiding it. Like that's the finest little nuance that like it requires a lot of like inception thinking
Yeah.
to
But
even.
that's your growth, right?
Yes, very proud of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think it's okay to like you've been growing so much lately. It's no wonder to me that, and also you've been creating income behind the scenes. And then you're going to move into your next phase where it's like, okay, I've got these foundations, I've got my offer suite, I know who I want to work with.
I've got the case studies, I've got the
Yeah,